Hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Football. Welcome to our match reaction show. It's finished. Manchester City won, Newcastle United nil. 2 wins out of 2 for Manchester City. 2 clean sheets out of 2 for Manchester City. You know what? I'm glad I made the conscious decision that I'm not going to watch Manchester City play because God, they're boring to watch. They're absolutely boring to watch. I put that in. I know it's controversial to say that if this is what exciting football is meant to be, I would rather. I can only imagine what people think is boring because that was tedious. And it's I don't like watching City play. I don't, not that I don't like them as a team. I just don't like watching City games, and I've said this often. I don't like it because it's just there's just like it's just so rudimentary. It's so robotic. It's just not fun. It's just not fun watching them because sometimes you watch a team because you want them to win. Sometimes you watch a game because you want that you watch a team because you want them to lose. With Manchester City, there's no wanting them to win or wanting them to lose because you just know it's inevitable that that's what's going to happen, and it's just almost like you're watching a movie which meanders to its inevitable conclusion, and all you're doing is you're just kind of passively waiting for it to be over, where you know what the conclusion is and you're just waiting for it all to be over. That's what I feel when I watch Manchester City. What is concerning though is I thought Newcastle were absolutely impressive against Aston Villa. They dominated them. They beat them quite convincingly. And Aston Villa are probably going to be a top 10 team this season. They're going to finish in the top half unless the Conference League takes that away. And in which case I do feel that they're favorites to win the Conference League as well. And yet they come here in Manchester City, and I think they barely laid a glove. I mean, maybe the one chance that was there for Callum Wilson, where he should have done better when the ball was given straight to him, he kind of just made a mess of that attacking move. But otherwise, Newcastle barely laid a glove on Manchester City. And don't get me wrong, I think Newcastle played about just as well as I expect any other team to play. I think Liverpool, Arsenal, probably the only other teams that will do better against Manchester City. Maybe Chelsea might with their midfield strength. But really, Newcastle never looked like winning that game. And that just is an indictment that, for a team, and I expect Newcastle will probably finish in the top 4 this season. So you're talking about teams that are supposed to be challengers to Manchester City, and they still look so far away. And keep in mind, this is a Manchester City that didn't have John Stones, didn't have Bernardo Silva, didn't have Kevin De Bruyne. So you imagine when you get all those players, what happens? To me, it's a depressing thought to think about where what's happening with the Premier League when you get games like this. But nonetheless, I mean, it is sad to watch as a United fan. It is sad to watch as a Premier League fan. And I do feel that there's a wider conversation that is beyond the scope of this game. But this game, to me, it justifies decisions. When I say, when I've said this consciously that I don't want to watch Manchester City games, maybe not in this forum, but I've said it consciously to myself that I don't want to watch Manchester City games. And then I decide to watch a game like this one. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, I'm glad I don't watch them play because it's so disinteresting. But the goal itself, I thought, was really good. And again, like I've said often, whenever Julian Alvarez plays well, whenever he scores a goal, it breaks my heart because this player you shouldn't be playing for Manchester City. You should have been playing for Manchester United, but they bungled that up. But it's a very good finish. I think, again, like I've said, De Bruyne's injury, if there's one team that can survive it, it's Manchester City. And it looks like they've survived it. They've got a draw against Sevilla, but whatever. But they won that game. They won this one as well, and they seem to be doing okay. And Alvarez just scored a goal. It does mean a change in stack shape because normally they play 3-2-4-1 with Kevin De Bruyne. But I think now in this game they played more for 3-2-3-2 because Alvarez plays a little bit more forward. But I don't think it makes much of a difference because Alvarez's work rate is fantastic. Yes, he's not as creative as De Bruyne, but his work rate is fantastic. So he can still do the defensive part of it and be that sixth midfielder that Pep Guardiola likes. But that goal was brilliant. But the real, I mean, like everybody said, nobody will disagree. I think the match was Phil Foden. That pass from Foden is really good. His overall play, I think, is really good. Phil Foden is someone who's always, with Manchester City, he's always threatened to be a starter. And then something happens, like always he starts the season and you think, wow, this is the season where Phil Foden is going to finally become, a main man or one of the main men for Manchester City. And then the end of the season comes and Phil Foden is back again on the bench. That always happens with Phil Foden. But I somehow feel like now with De Bruyne getting injured, I think he is someone who could be key for City. And I think he's someone, I think this is now or never really in terms of, going from the fringes of being a star to being an absolute star. I think this is now or never for Phil Foden because if we can take advantage of De Bruyne's injury and really push himself on to become that key player, I think that will really help him. This will be the time for him to do it. And I think he's made a good starter because he had a very good performance today, man of the match against a big team like Newcastle. That's a phenomenal start. And I think Pep Guardiola will trust him more, give him more opportunities, and maybe push him towards becoming the player that we all believe that he can be. So it was a good performance for him, a lot of confidence for him. Another point of concern, Erling Haaland, again against another big team, has failed to score a goal. How many times has this happened in the last few months? I mean, Erling Haaland always seems to come a cropper against big clubs, against good defenses, in big games. He always seems to struggle. And today, again, he struggled. He had a couple of half chances. They never really quite anything clear cut, and he couldn't score. And Alvarez scored. And I think that's just the thing. I think, that's the difference between Alvarez and Haaland. Alvarez is more dynamic. He's got that dynamism to his game, which really makes him a dangerous striker. Haaland is an absolutely world-class, legendary goal poacher, but he just doesn't have the dynamism to his game. And I don't know whether he can ever have it. I don't think he can ever be that dynamic center forward. He's got the physical attributes, but I just don't think, he can ever be that dynamic. I think he's always going to be someone who's going to be very good at one or two things, but he'll be very, very good at it. And you've got to take that, and you've got to take that into account. But I just don't think he'll be as dynamic as Julian Alvarez. That being said, him being good at one or two things is still very, very vital, because in tight games, in tight moments, those one or two things are what matters. Because, at some point, it's possible that City will play badly, and yet, Haaland could pop up with a goal. That's what having him means, right? You have a striker who can get you out of sticky situations. So, and this is not a criticism of his overall gameplay. I think this is just something that people, is something that you can either accept, that he's always going to be this player who's probably going to go missing in the big games, unless he makes changes to his game, which I don't think you would want to, because his game is so good, you don't really want to mess with that. But you got to accept that he's probably not going to be a big game player the way that he is now. Or you kind of go, well, let's make him a big game player, but then we lose certain attributes of what he has. So that's just where it is. It's not a criticism of Haaland, of course. It's just an observation that I have. Feel free to disagree with that, of course, in the comments, but that's just what I feel. And then otherwise, I mean, there's not much to talk about, because not much happened. City controlled the game. Newcastle had a couple of half chances. City took their chance. Probably should have scored a second goal, didn't. But overall, the game just kind of, like I said, meandered to its conclusion. I think Newcastle gave a good account of themselves, and I hope that they will make top four again. I do feel that in the medium term, it's going to be Newcastle are going to be the closest challengers to Manchester City. Maybe Chelsea, if they can keep finding ways around FFP, then maybe Chelsea. But I think really Newcastle are the ones that are best placed, because financially and sporting wise, I think at the moment the only two teams that can get closer are Chelsea and Newcastle. And Chelsea, of course, unfortunately, always have this financial specter hanging over them with their new ownership, whereas Newcastle probably don't have that, because they've got owners with deep pockets. So I do feel that over medium term, it's going to be Newcastle. We need to see them in the top four more consistently. I think last season was good. I think this season is going to be vital for them to stay in the top four, to stay in the Champions League, top 4, 5, whatever. To be in the Champions League next season is going to be important, because then I think they can really, I think this season is one of consolidation. I think next season is one when they'll, I think, really start to, when the money starts to roll in, I think, from the legal sources, I think they can then start to look forward towards building towards the title challenge. But anyway, that's another conversation. But I did feel they gave a good account of themselves. They do have a very powerful midfield, though, with Joelinton, Bruno, and Tonali. And I hope Joelinton is not injured for too long. They'll probably do that called Callum Wilson chance in the second half, though. That could have changed the game. Probably would have changed the game as well if he had made more of it. But such is margins in football. I do feel Manchester City, and this is what I will end with. I think Manchester City getting 6 points out of 6 is a big problem, especially with the fact that they've not been playing so well, and yet they've kept 2 clean sheets and they've got 6 points. That is not good, because I said this in the preview. For Manchester City to lose the title at game 23, at least one team, whichever team is top, has to be 15 points clear of Manchester City. That is the only way you're winning the title, because anything less than that, City will claw it back. Because at that point, City's superior squad depth will kick in. The other team, whichever team it is, none of the other teams seem to have the depth that is needed to sustain a title challenge at this moment in time. It doesn't look like it. Chelsea, again, probably the closest, but even they have a lot of question marks on their team. So at this moment in time, no other club looks like it has a squad depth. The only team that has a squad is Manchester City. So you have to be 15 points clear, so that you give yourself an opportunity where you can lose 5 games in the last 15 and still win the title. But at the moment, if City keep winning games like this, 6 points, they keep getting, playing badly and getting points, where's the scope to be the 15 points clear? Because once De Bruyne comes back, once Stones comes back, once Silva comes back, second half, they'll be all fresh, all fit, while the other team players have run themselves into the ground, and they'll just steamroll and win the title. So at the moment, it's bad news. It is bad news that they're playing badly and winning, but that is what it is. Anyway, share your thoughts on the game, of course. What do you think of City's performance? What do you think of Newcastle's performance? I don't think there was a lot more Newcastle could have done. I think they could have focused more on playing the game rather than being too physical. Sometimes I feel teams kind of get carried away by trying to be physical, and then they just start fouling players, and what that does is gets you on yellow cards, and then you actually can't play your natural game anyway. So I feel Newcastle might have got a bit carried away with that, but other than that, I don't see what else they could have done, because City pretty much just looked at a different level. Even with their, even despite being as bad as they were from their usual standards. Not that they were that bad, but yeah. Anyway, but share your thoughts, because maybe I've missed something. So share that. Smash like for this video. Smash like for Phil Foden. Smash like for Manchester City winning this game. Congratulations to all the Manchester City fans on the win. Do subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We always appreciate your support. We're getting close to 380 subscribers, so please do subscribe so we can get that number. Thank you so much for watching. I've done a lot of videos today, so go back and check them after this one, of course. Take care. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.